152 yards. Should be just a nice, comfortable 9-iron for him. They're going to go nuts when he hits this thing.
Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Yo, what's up, friends? It is great to be live back on the internet. My name is Joe Idoni. Welcome into the Preferred Lines Golf Betting Podcast, where this week we will preview the Shriners Children's Open, one of my favorite tournaments, one of the few courses on the PGA Tour Rota that I've had the chance to play. So I feel like I have sort of a little bit more insight and an intimate relationship with the golf course from a 10 handicap perspective. We'll see how good that does me this week. But thank you for joining the show. If you're here, like the tweet that you saw this on, maybe share it with a friend, go over to the YouTube page, make sure you subscribe to the Preferred Lines YouTube channel. That is where I do all the giveaways for the show. Thank you so much for supporting it. And speaking of support, got to mention the good folks over at Rotoballer. The PGA team is still active and hard at work during this fall swing. While many others have taken sort of a step back, we continue to ramp up the amount of content that we do. I already have 2 articles out this week, my top 10 power rankings for the Shriner, as well as a pretty detailed course preview where I go into pull data from a lot of different resources. It's kind of like less written stuff for me and more just a collection of all the different places that I pull notes from. Those are both out there completely 100% for free right now on Rotoballers. I'll have a matchups piece out later this week. Discord channels popping off. Launching Long Shots will be up live on their YouTube channel later today. So thank you so much to them for always supporting the show. Okay. Without further ado, let's bring the guest right into the show. He is probably the most, besides Chad, the second most recurring guest to Preferred Lines, a good friend of mine, a good friend of the program, an awesome person to talk betting golf with, as always. Nevada resident, Luke Walker. You know him at Luke Sweat It Out on Twitter. Pleasure to have you on the show as a new father of 3 to make some time for me this week. Congratulations. Thanks for joining me, man.
Big Joe, thanks for having me. Good to be on with the most handsome man in golf podcasting. Father of 3. We're deep in it, bud. Deep in it. But when I get the text to get on the Preferred Lines, I send him away. I sent him out of the house. I got him out of here. Get out. I don't want any distractions. No more naked butts coming into the screen mid-show. None of that. Talking golf. Let's get after it, buddy.
I was going to say, we've had a couple appearances from the youngins on the show. Nice to see you have an IPA. Cheers to everyone out there. Excited to talk Shriners and preview TPC Summerlin. I actually love this event, probably my favorite event of the fall swing. But let's recap a little bit of last week. What'd you think of the Black Desert Championship? Did you enjoy the course? Did you have any Matt McCarty? Final thoughts sort of on the BDC?
Yeah, it seemed like one of the coolest courses you could play, like from a visual perspective. It was badass. I was actually texting a buddy of mine who's planning a wedding, and I was like, dude, what do we think about Utah golf trip for a bachelor party? But then we're like, I don't know how the gentleman's club scene is going to be out there, and gambling, all that might not be the best venue, but definitely a place to put on the list for a just pure golf trip. Didn't have any Matt McCarty. Looking back at it, kind of obvious, right? The form is outrageous. I had a couple of guys who were in the mix at different points who fell away, backdoored, whatever. But it's always tough when it's a brand new venue, right? From a betting perspective, but pretty badass looking spot. Cool. Looked very cool on TV.
Yeah, there are many events that I would care less if they ever brought them back on the PGA Tour schedule next year. I think that they've ultimately need to trim that down. This place should stay. It was a perfect fall swing event. I think that they probably get a better field next year. I don't know. You say that about Utah. I think they've been known to get a little crazy out there in Utah, but my buddy, same thing. My boys group golf text was lighting up saying we need to go out there. There are a bunch of cool courses, I think, in the area, but visually on TV, this place had it. Like you mentioned about McCarty, Didn't have it, should have seen it. Of course, if I would have been on him, it probably wouldn't have hit. I did feel really good about Henrik Norlander for a while. He's sitting at -10 and like hadn't even teed off on Friday yet. And the lead only got to 12 or 13. So I was like, man, if Norlander can shoot 6, 7 under, like he could take a commanding 5-stroke lead over second. That's how things have been for me. Had the Hostler Mitchell combo the week before.
Yeah.
But listen, man, we keep grinding. I was actually thought that was a very cool golf course. I think we need more of that kind of stuff in the fall. I love TPC Summerlin, but I'm good on some of the other spots. I think playing interesting, like we know what the field's going to be. So going to interesting spots that most people haven't had the chance to see that look different to the eye, I think brings a nice little element to the fall swing. And I think this place should stay.
I mean, I think that's one thing about the PGA Tour in general, right? Is there are a million awesome golf courses in this country. There's awesome golf courses everywhere, and we kind of just end up going to the same, sometimes a little bit watered down, kind of plain vanilla, just but because we've always gone there, right? So we have to always go there, and that's kind of really the only reasoning that I know of. Obviously, some sponsor deals and those sorts of things, I'm sure behind the scenes makes it a little harder to just hop on a new course. But it's fun to get new blood and new places, especially when they really show out. And that place seemed like it had some fire in it. Like balls were kind of rolling out. Like it was just a cool course.
Yeah, there were the ability to go really low under par, but like I think everyone had like a 9-hole spurt where they were like over par in it. Like I had some Ryan Fox and I'd look and he's like 3 over, but then he shot 6 under on the back. Those are cool spots. I love the drama there. I had kind of advocated a few weeks ago that maybe the PGA Tour should consider like spending the fall swing over in Europe because they've had some great events over there. I know you bet most of them, probably more than I do. Hatton a few weeks ago obviously won the Dunhill. Last week we had Dan Bradbury win. Did you catch any of what it looked like? There was some controversy online with a little bit of potentially anchoring in the chest there. What did you like? What do we do about this? Because everyone knows the rule, but it seems 100% unenforceable. Like if you're the rules official that walks up to him on the Sunday on the back nine, I was like, hey, we're going to ding you for that. You're totally the bad guy. And the internet explodes because he got penalized. It just seems unenforceable. And it looked like down the stretch, he was totally utilizing that to hole some big putts. Did you catch any of that?
I did not catch that, but the rules thing in general, I've obviously followed since there was the no anchoring thing. But then it's like, okay, so we take away anchoring, but then guys are still kind of doing it anyways, but a little bit different. Not really changing the fundamental, like, what they're doing with their body. I think it was Tiger, in fact, that had the suggestion that like we just make a rule of the putter has to be the shortest club in your bag. That solves the issue, right? Like,
wow.
I think there's a lot of ways to make the rule. Another one would be like, I mean, I don't know, this might be a goofy thought, but like your hands have to be touching each other on all strokes, right? Mm-hmm. So then with your putter, there's only one way to hold it. Like, there's a lot of, I think, more common sense ways to approach the rule than like the way that they've done the anchoring when everybody's just gotten around it. All these dudes are doing the broomstick, like. It's just goofy and golf can't get out of its own way. That is kind of a theme
sometimes it can't. I think we talked PGA Tour, we talked your DP World Tour. Speaking of getting out of its own way, it seems that Liv, in some news that I saw today, is willing to basically adjust the role of Greg Norman so that he's no longer CEO. I think that this was a big hurdle in terms of getting this deal done. As stupid as it sounds, like it doesn't matter. But when you have people like Tiger and Rory like outwardly advocating against him, and like I think Tiger had the quote like, "This will never happen as long as Greg's CEO," doesn't make much sense. But now that he's out of the way, do you feel like it's sort of paving the way and another step in the right direction toward potentially getting these two tours back together?
I hope so. I think that there's definitely, where there's smoke, there's fire kind of a thing with Greg Norman, right? Like clearly people do not like this guy. He does not like people on the other side. Mm-hmm. He's not willing to like play nice, and they're not willing to play nice with him. And so at a certain point, you have to thank him for his service, right? He's done a lot of good work to get Liv, to where it is. But at a certain point, it's like he's kind of standing in the way. Yeah, I hope something gets done, because the way that it is right now, I don't think any of us really like it, right? I also think that Liv in the last year, 18 months or something, has finally kind of got some of the momentum that it was always seeking, right? Like we all care about it more. I think the public outrage over where the money comes from and some of that stuff has kind of dwindled, right?
Yeah.
And we're finally getting to the point where, like, okay, there are a lot of golfers on this tour that we want to watch, so we're willing to look past whatever else is going on. But at the end of the day, I think the viewership's goal, fans, our thing's always been the same, right? We want to see the best players playing each other as much as possible. And so I think that Liv kind of needs to act soon, because they're going to run out of this momentum, because I still don't know a ton of people who watch it at all, week to week. I follow it because I'm a golf junkie, and I usually have money on Brooks, and he's pretty often in the mix and all that. So like, they have to capitalize. The PGA needs to capitalize on any bit of leverage that they have. And I think Greg Norman getting away from the table, the negotiating table, is only going to be a positive.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think one of the players' gripes going back to before Liv even started with the PGA Tour is like they wanted sort of some control over their own media rights. And they just want the tour to like promote them and like stuff outside of just competing in a PGA Tour event. They want to promote their players. And that's one thing I will kind of give Liv credit for, is they very much promote their players, even when it has nothing to do with Liv Golf. Like, they're promoting Bryson's YouTube channel a lot. I saw either today or yesterday, it was kind of interesting that they are actively promoting the match. Speaking of Vegas, coming up in Shadow Creek, our boy is out there, Brooks and Bryson versus Rory and Scotty. I kind of want to see more and learn more about how this deal shakes out. But apparently what I've heard is they're not playing for money. They're all essentially getting an appearance fee and doing this match, which I'm sure is lofty, of maybe north of $1 million per player. But Liv's like promoting that, and they have nothing really to gain other than the fact that it is Liv versus PGA Tour. But I'd be very shocked if we see anything from the PGA Tour side now that Rory and Scotty have kind of left them out of it and no way for the tour to make money. If they're still willing to promote their probably two most marketable players in this match. So that'll kind of be interesting. Do you have any interest in going to something like that at Shadow? Do you know if they're selling tickets out there?
I haven't looked into it. I don't know. It's it's tough, man. I have to pick my spots when it comes to going to Vegas. Very well, with kids, I have to pick my spots in general. But even just going to Vegas, like, it's it just, the weekend just gets out of hand quickly, right? And the amount of times you can go down there in 1 year. It's like, I'm, Raiders fan, so I'm trying to go down to Raiders games and stuff. So I don't know that I would ever consider going to something like that. It'd be fun to watch on TV. I'm absolutely going to be locked in. But no, I'm totally with you, man. It's like the PGA Tour is very stuck in its ways, as we just mentioned, with like the course selection over and over. And, they just don't capitalize on these things. That is one thing that I will give to Liv, is that they have kind of taken a more modern approach to, the way that the internet works, and like the way that social media works. And like, they're doing a lot of things right. But I think everybody kind of understands that for golf to have a really healthy like future, there needs to be some sort of merger. And I don't know, man, we'll see.
All right, we're going through all the access points of professional golf. Let's talk Ryder Cup that was in the news. These outrageous prices that they're posting now for tickets at Bethpage. If you want to go all 3 days, you're going to spend $2,500, and that's before travel, that's before hotel, that's before food and bev. They're seemingly pricing a lot of people out. Like, price me out. Like, if I wanted to go, because I have family in that area, but And I thought about going with my dad, but am I going to spend $5,000 for the two of us to go? Absolutely not. And you take into the fact that a lot of people, and I've never been to a Ryder Cup or President's Cup, but even Pat and Jeff and Kenny and Byron, who I know were just there, and people that went to Whistling, it's not a great fan experience from the point where it's very hard to follow, and you're packing all the fans into what is essentially 4 groups. And when a couple of those finish up, you're down to 2. Very tough to see. I know that from what I've heard from people from the Bethpage that Brooks won. Do I still have the flag up there? Oh yeah, PGA right here, Bethpage Black. It's down there. The way Bethpage is set up, and what makes it hard is a lot of the greens are so elevated. And anytime you have that and you're trying to pack, say, 15,000 people on a golf hole, you can't see the putts. Like, as a fan, if you're not in the first row and at an elevated point above the green, which is very tough to get out there, you can't see what's going on. The fan experience, I think, in general in these events is not great. They should be generally, in my opinion, just enticing to get as many people in there for rooting interests as they possibly can to create a raucous environment that we all expect to see and we were all hoping to see for New York. It's a bad look for them. I wonder how it affects the event, but I was just kind of pissed off when I saw like why are they trying, and they don't have to pay players, so why are they charging a fan to come all 3 days $2,500?
So I've seen this kind of phenomenon happen in a couple other areas, and it's disappointing, right? So one area I've mentioned that I'm a Raiders fan. I've been to many Raiders games at Oakland Coliseum, right? It was a great experience, right? Tickets weren't anything crazy. You can get there on the BART, you can show up, and the fans that show up are the diehards, the guys dressed up as Darth Vader and Spikes and whatever, all those people you see on TV, the Black Hole. The people who showed up were the ones who cared and then got rowdy and got crazy. The other place that I've seen this phenomenon is at Burning Man. My family, avid burners. I haven't been since we started having kids, but had gone for a few years in a row. And what started happening with Burning Man in the last couple of years was that these tech bros were paying, whatever, 10 grand, 15, 20 grand to have people set up like their luxury camp for them. And then they would fly in to the desert and go to like their luxury camp and just have like all this nice food and all this like showers and all kinds of shit. And it's all the stuff that is so anti Burning Man, like so against the normal tenets of Burning Man. And these people bring nothing to Burning Man, right? The whole idea is that you go out there, you bring something, you're bartering, you bring art, you like are interacting with people, and these people are coming just to take, right? And it really ruined Burning Man for a couple of years, to the point where like this year attendance was the lowest it's been in a long time. People have had horrible experiences the last couple of years, and I think that that's kind of what they're setting up for this, right? The people who can afford to go, those are going to be people who aren't like the most raucous fans, right?
It's gonna be corporate tickets. It's gonna be LACC. It's gonna be. You're right. It's gonna be corporate hedge fund managers in New York and people coming from Wall Street, and not the culture that has been around the Ryder Cup for so many years. And that's probably one of the things you're probably seeing now with the Raiders is they feel like there's an identity or a culture crisis where now, you're flooding in people who, instead of getting hardcore fans, you're flooding in people who are flying in for an experience and going to Vegas, and all of a sudden you get swamped with Steelers fans. It's like, even I was looking and somebody tweeted it. I don't know who it was, but I'm not a huge baseball guy, but I'm Cleveland everything. So it's Cleveland Yankees tonight. Game 2 is going on. You go to Yankee Stadium and watch, an ALCS game for $100 in Yankee Stadium. And that's so much. And I don't like baseball, but the viewing experience in a stadium watching baseball is so much better than watching golf. I mean, I was at the Players and it still was like hard to keep up with people and find a way. And you've got to wiggle in to see, and then you got to rush to the next tee box. The fan experience, I can't imagine, is great. So to be sort of price gouging out part of their core base that they've developed a lot of the culture around the event from, I think is kind of a huge mistake there.
It's a big swing and a miss, no doubt about it.
All right, so since we're touching on all the leagues, I got one more for you. We're like 87 days from the start of TGL. down here by me.
Oh man.
They announced today a partnership to pick it up on Canada. This thing is going to be on Monday nights on ESPN, I still believe. There does not seem to be much buzz around the league and around what's going on. And I know that they're trying. I've even, look, I've tried to reach out to them. I'm going to be frank right here. I've been like, look, this is Monday night every week in Palm Beach. It's not an easy spot for people to get to cover this event. I live here. Like, let me help you. Let me be there. Let me do some sort of content around your event. I'm not huge. I'm not Golf Bet. I'm not any of these major media outlets, but I'm something. I'm someone who doesn't have to fly in every Monday night after a PGA Tour event that is right here. And just getting through like a door to speak to someone has proven to be like near impossible. So I just have a bad feeling about it. I hope for my sake that it goes well and it's something that can pick up, because I think it's really cool for me to be able to go on Monday nights and see the best players like every week in the same place. I think it has potential, but I'm worried about the lack of buzz that I'm seeing like 90 days out. Where you at with do you have a team for TGL? Do you got a rooting interest?
I don't. I got to be honest, man. I've barely paid attention. All I remember was that it was supposed to happen like maybe like a yearish ago, right? And then
Yeah.
the building collapsed.
Building
Or like
collapse. Yeah.
yeah. So and then it's like I on Twitter I'll just see every once in a while like when somebody's doing good, like the Boston whatever frogs or something that they are, like will tweet out about that their guy is doing something, and I'm just like, what is this? Like
Yeah.
my whole thing is like, who is this for? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's very cool. I hope that there is a plan to like incorporate the ability to bet or do fantasy on
Right.
it, or that's got to be the goal, because otherwise I'm not really sure like what about it is appealing to people or who it's
Yeah.
for. I don't know, man. And so 87 days, that would be after football season, right?
Yes,
So.
it's basically
Going
supposed
up.
to. I think it's during the playoffs, but it's when they
Okay.
stop playing on
No more
Monday.
Monday night
So I
games, yeah.
think the idea is that it essentially takes the slot of Monday Night Football, which is unimaginable that they could get that deal without any sort of proven product.
Right.
And especially since the building like imploded. But you're right. You have to, in order for it to work, you have probably one first impression with most of your viewers, right? And if it's not gambler friendly, if there's not a social component to it, whether the players mic'd up or, and I'm sure they will be, but if they aren't embracing social media personalities other than myself and YouTube golf and incorporating these other sort of elements, I'm worried that it could be a swing and a miss. I'm worried about my Jupiter Lynx guys, man. Listen, the Jupiter Lynx these are my boys, diehard Lynx fan, for the sun, for the sand, for the surf, whatever they say in that commercial that they released. But I'm worried my guys may be the worst team in the league, and they may be better suited. Like the Lynx would be great if they were the broadcast team. So you've
Right.
got Kisner, Tiger, Homa, and Tom Kim. That'd be a great broadcast team of like four guys. You like Kisner could be the guy down there. Tom Kim, Tiger, and Homa would be funny and be great to hear in the booth. I'm worried they aren't too set up for success, though. Tiger, we don't even know if he can swing. Kisner's virtually losing his PGA Tour card. Homa's on his way to the basement. Worried about the Lynx, but we'll see how things progress.
I'm officially declaring as the Bay Golf Club stan. I just want that to be known.
Oh, you want the Bay? Who's the Bay got? Do they got Wyndham and
we got Windy C, Ludwig, Minwoo, and Shane. That's a bunch of guys that I love right there. So
fun team.
Yeah.
Fun team. All right. Okay. It's time. Let's talk a little TPC Summerlin. It's been 25 minutes. Let's get to a little bit of the course. Have you played TPC Summerlin?
I have not. No, I haven't played a lot of Vegas golf in general, to be honest, but familiar with it. A really good one that we see a lot. It's a good one.
Yeah. So, Pat, when you almost came, you were on the way traveling back with your dad and weren't able to stop in, but Pat, Jeff, and I, Masters Week, We're able to play that with my buddy Scott Blumstein, who's awesome dude. If you're watching this, Scott, thanks again for treating us out there to that course. But pretty cool design. It's in an extremely upscale neighborhood out in Summerlin, Las Vegas. Like there's, Copperfield's house, and Devontae Adams was like right there, had a spot. Now he's on his way. Sorry for your loss today. Hey,
Yeah.
I had a big loss
I'm
too
happy.
in the wide
I'm
receiver
happy about
market.
it. I'm happy.
Same
about
here. We got rid of Amari Cooper. Team cancer this year. Something was up with him.
Yeah.
But anyway, Summerlin, par 71, very short golf course, even short by my standards from the tees that we played. 7,255 yards, plays at elevation, very much desert golf, similar in a way to what we saw out in Utah last week, but I think that it is much more inclined to reward the players on precision off the tee versus that place. I think played is a bit more of a bomb and gouge style, like 60-yard wide fairways versus in this week, what you'll see is 25-yard fairways. The landing areas are much narrower than what we saw last week. I have it as one of the more difficult places to get up and down on the PGA Tour. And I remember that for myself, very tight, new Bermuda grass in all of the fairways out there. So they replaced all 18 greens as well before last season's Shriner. So this will be year 2. Really firm last year. There are a ton of slope on these greens. So I think the other point about being in the fairway that makes it so important is you are able to access some of these slopes that feed into pin locations at this area and utilize them. If you're in the rocks, you're screwed. You are not getting a ball out of there or out of a desert bush. But if you're in like the little bit of a rough area, makes it very tough with the angles, the way it plays with you to get something really close here. I think a blend of sort of around the green work alongside driving accuracy. You're going to have a ton of approach shots inside of 150 yards. Nearly 40% of shots over the last 5 years come from within that range. So hit the fairway. You're going to have a ton of wedges to give yourself birdie opportunities. And then you're going to have putts from 15 to 20 feet. And it's one of the more correlated courses on the PGA Tour in terms of strokes gained putting to success ratio. Those are kind of the main sticking points that I have from TPC Summerlin. Also, you can bang this place down the stretch. There are those closing par 5s. There's that drivable par 4. You can really, so there are, you have 13, which is a par 5 that's reachable. 15 is a drivable par 4. 16 is a par 5 that also plays it to like 4.2 stroke average. 17 is a difficult par 3 over water, but you can really get home with some scores down the stretch, which I think always is the sign of a course that is exciting. We've seen some drama there on 18 with Pat Cantlay a few years ago. But those are kind of my general notes and talking points on Summerlin. Do you have anything different there, Luke?
No, I mean, it's a good point. On TPC courses like to do that, right? They like to have some fireworks down the stretch with par 5s, drivable par 4s. You mentioned this is desert golf, right? We saw it last week. We see it in Phoenix, where if you are wayward, you could get lucky. You could be just out in the sand and have a shot, but you could also get completely screwed and you're looking at a double or worse, automatically. So being super wayward, spraying it too much is never going to work. You mentioned the green, it being tough up and down around the greens. I believe though these greens are gigantic, right? So
they are.
You mentioned the slope of them though. So like lag putting, right? If you're in the wrong part of the green, you may have a very difficult 3 or 2 putt. If you're in the fairway and you got a manageable number, you've got a chance to get it in the right part of the green, give yourself a chance to make birdie. And then yeah, man, I think you nailed all of them. The elevation, you just kind of want to be accurate. And we've seen a lot of really good putting, do good things here. Kevin Na, I think, won losing strokes tee to green. I'm not sure you can really see that kind of thing almost anywhere ever. And then one thing that I've noticed just with like past winners is a lot of really good players win here. Even for being a fall event, we get good players, and that's what makes this, I think, probably my favorite of the fall swing events. Is like when the good players do show up, we oftentimes see them competing, and even some of these guys who we would consider good players who are not quite the super elites are showing up and doing some good things. But Yeah, that's all I got to add.
Yeah, absolutely. Good points there about the cream sort of rising to the top at this course. One of the things that I think makes the greens tough is I mentioned the different sort of tiers and slopes, but very tough place to get up and down from. I can speak from experience. And the way that the greens are is they're kind of have these runoffs around them. So you're kind of chipping uphill a little bit to a green that then runs away from you.
Yeah,
So what happens now that it's this sort of like champion Bermuda grass or whatever it has is that grain is brutal. And especially this time of year, chipping into it, you really have to commit and judge it perfectly, or it's going to ultimately affect your chipping ability to create spin. So if you don't have spin, you don't have control around the greens, which is one of the things that makes it tough. But ultimately, I think the biggest challenge from this place comes with weather. So you get those really windy, dry days sometimes in the fall, which the one tournament that I think Cantlay did win out here, it got really tough and really windy. So I think paying attention to the weather as we get closer to the time it tees off will give you a better indication of final score. But for the most part, you're expecting someone to likely eclipse the 20 under par mark once again, and that's probably going to be your winner.
yeah, great point. It does look like from a very early, we're still couple days out, but there is going to be some wind. It looks like so. For you wind split nuts, make sure you get a nice late Wednesday as close to tee times as possible. Look at the weather because there is a possibility that plays a factor.
Check the weather. All right, let's hit the board. All right, let me bring to the stage the betting board for this week's Shriners Children's Open 2024. You have Mr. Tom Kim headed for a three-peat this week, potentially, the rare occurrence of winning 3 in a row. I think it's still Steve Stricker is the last one to do it at the John Deere many a moons ago. Tom Kim going for a repeat off a nice performance at the President's Cup. Speaking of the President's Cup, you also have Taylor Pendrith, second on the odds, now at 25-1. Nearly double that number of Tom Kim, excuse me. Bo Hostler, David Thompson right there at 30. Local guy Seamus Power is here at 33-1, kind of trending in a positive direction. Eric Cole looking better at 35-1. These are the guys right now under 40. I'll even throw Keith Mitchell and Kurt Kitayama in the mix there. Luke, do you have anyone from the top this week that you really like?
It's there's some guys that I'm swimming around. I think Kim, if you're gonna three-peat, dude, go for it, man.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be involved. I love watching him. He's fun. He's cool. I will cheer for him if it happens, but I'm not gonna be there. Taylor Pendrith is interesting. He's got some really good form. He's actually like kind of showing himself to be like maybe a guy, right? Had a pretty nice President's Cup, has had some just really good recent history, played well here last year, I do believe. Let's see, finished third last year.
Yep.
So if there were a guy under 30, I'd say he would be the only one I'd be looking at. There's not really a lot under 30, right? It's so if of the shortest guys I'd be looking at, I'd probably be looking at him. But the guy I'm taking the closest look at in this group that you got on the screen right now is probably Eric Cole. I'm kind of developing a bit of an Eric Cole problem. I can't quit this guy.
Yeah.
I believe in what he does. I think it should work, especially on a course like this. Kind of, you can't overpower this course. Precision with the irons, get hot with the putter. Like that should be Eric Cole. So that's the guy I'm looking at the closest in this group of dudes.
Yeah, like you mentioned on Tom Kim, I'm there with you. Not going to bet it this week. If he three-peats, good on you. I think Pendrith is a little bit underrated here. He got some flack for how he played in the President's Cup. I thought he was fine. I thought he was good, actually. He played in those things with Adam Scott. If he had won his Sunday singles match, which he was into until, I believe, like the 17th hole, he could have potentially been the leading scorer on that team. Now, part of it's being paired with Adam Scott. But here's the thing, like, his last 5 starts, even beyond that, the worst finish is T22. So I love Davis Thompson. I've been on record on this show that I think he's a stud. I think he is a breakout candidate for 2025. But right now, Taylor Pendrith is significantly better, in my opinion. He's a lot better than Hostler. He's better than Thompson. He is a lot better than Seamus Power. Really good player. I link him to the other Canadians and Kent State guys and like Hughes and Connors. I think Pendrith's the best one, dude. I think he
Might
ends
be.
up. I'll say this may be a little bit of a controversial take. I think Pendrith ends up with more career wins than Corey Connors. He is longer. He's not quite as accurate off the tee, but he is a lot better putter. He was one of the most improved putters on the PGA Tour last year. 4 straight starts gaining strokes putting. Tour championship he made it to and finished in the top 15 this year, gained 4 strokes putting there, gained strokes putting at the BMW, gained strokes at the 3M Open, gained strokes at the Barracuda, got his win, finally his maiden victory, and I think that he has all the tools for success. Here's the other thing. I mentioned you got to be really good inside of 150 yards here, and I'll kind of spoil the beans right below this, but I did take Tom Hoge at 40-1 because Hoge is a phenomenal wedge. Anytime you get a course where a lot of the shots come within 150 yards, you want to play Tom Hoge. I have him third in the field on strokes gained approach from 70 to 150 yards. You know who's second? Taylor Pendrith, a really good driver, a really good wedge player, and an awesome putter. That's someone who is going to win PGA Tour events. You mentioned the T3 here last year, I think brings an additional element of confidence into him this week. I'm not quite sure. I've made all these points, but I'm not quite sure if I'm actually going to pull the trigger on that number. Would love to see it float up to like 28 or potentially 30. Sometimes Wednesdays, my books will give a little bit of a boost on some of these numbers. So I'm going to wait around and see there. But he is the one that absolutely, I think, is the best value play in this range, at least for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm seeing like my best, the one that I have access to is plus 2250. So I mean, that's a pretty enticing bet. It probably means that I skip 1 or 2 guys kind of in the more mid range, which I've got a bunch of guys in that range that I'm considering. I haven't made any firm choices yet, but yeah, man, I think Pendrith he's really like a classy player, and I think that in the next
Good.
year, 2 years, we probably see that um, he is kind of a step above a lot of the guys that we kind of consider him to be in the same realm as. He also bombs it. So on a course like this, he might have the ability to club down a little bit, try to hit some 3 woods out in the fairway, and then like you said, just absolutely stuff it from inside 150.
Who did he play against? I'm trying to remember. Do you remember who he played Sunday singles?
I don't remember on the Sunday, but I do remember the only match that Morikawa lost was on that Friday. Lost to Pendrith and
Yep.
Adam Stone, I believe, right? So it's like there's
Oh, he
no
had to
doubt.
play Cantlay, dude, and he took Cantlay to the end.
Yeah,
He had to play the killer.
And yeah, let's not forget who Patrick Cantlay is when it comes to these.
Yeah. He had a couple
events,
bad
right?
shots, and I think people really piled on to him. And I think from like a data golf, because they were doing strokes gain stuff, he wasn't that good. But I watched him, and he was
Yeah.
good. And he did make clutch shots, and he did step up when the time mattered. And the strokes gain stuff, as we know, can get a little bit wonky in those type of formats anyways, because sometimes you're taking chances you would not normally take and taking on risk and imploding a score, missing a green that you would never normally miss because you're trying to pull off something special because the other guy's in tight. Anyways, you mentioned a couple of guys in the sort of mid-range that you do like. Jaeger's here, who's been on a nice little run. I mentioned Tom Hoge, who I bet. Cam Davis is 40. Matt McCarty, last week's winner, is at 40. Hadwin 45, Griffin 45, English 45, Harry Hall, local guy. I actually saw Harry Hall when I was at TPC Summerlin there practicing. Poston is 45, Spawns at that 50 number. A good group of players of a lot of guys who could probably use a PGA Tour victory right about now. Who are the ones for you?
Yeah, so you've already talked about Hoagie. That's a guy who is on my short list for the exact reasons you said. He's had some success here.
Yes.
Cam Davis is it kind of jumps out. This number seems a little disrespectful. I think that he should probably be closer to kind of that Taylor Pendrith number, actually. I think he's kind of that quality of player, right? We've seen him win, I think twice, right, on tour.
Yes. Same tournament, right? The Rocket.
Yep. But it's like these Aussies kind of seem to kind of gravitate. It's funny. We see Aussies and Canadians kind of gravitate towards desert golf a little bit. Cam Davis just does a lot of the things that you would expect to be successful at this course. He can can be a really good putter at times. So that's a guy I'm interested in. Hadwin is the guy, the horse for the course.
Yep.
Obviously, his course history here is outrageous. So you can't
Yeah.
just totally overlook that. Matt McCarty, he's on an absolute heater. Is he hot enough that it continues on here? Right. I mean, I think most of what he did last week was putting. So if the putter stays hot, he's going to be in the mix. But of the guys you got on the screen right now, I think the one that for sure I am 1,000% betting is Harris English.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good week last week for Harris.
So there's going to be a little bit of a theme to some of the guys I really like, and that is former elite or borderline elite players who have kind of fallen off and pretty much based on injury, right? So you can probably guess the other two guys that I'm going to be looking at. But Harris English is he was top 10 like not too long ago. Then he had the hip injury. It's been kind of a slow comeback. He'll flash and then he disappears and then he'll flash. But he had a really good week last week. He's had decent history here before. I just think that he's the type of player who, when things are going right for him, this course is exactly perfect. And I was listening to Mayo's podcast earlier, and they were talking about some overlap with Cromwell with the River Highlands, and he's a winner there.
Oh yeah.
So English is a guy that I am going to be on for sure.
How is that? Just because it's like TPC and short?
It's got to be something about the TPC, the shortness. I don't know if it was just a leaderboard crossover that yeah.
Makes sense. Hadwin, I took him. I'm a sucker for some course history. 45-1, I got an Adam Hadwin. He is second in strokes gained total at TPC Summerlin, behind only Tom Kim, who obviously won the last 2 years. But 4 top 10s in his last 5 starts here, including a solo second place last year where I thought he could actually make a run at Tom down the stretch. Just one of those places that seems to be a comfort zone spot for Adam Hadwin, and I know that he has those on tour. I trust, I guess. I mean, comparative to the field, I trust him putting in contention. If this was a great field, I'd be like, that's not the guy I want taking it. But there are a lot of guys here with less proven careers than Adam Hadwin. So I think that he can bring that coupled with a little course confidence into this week. The stats don't rate out terrific for me, but I just feel like this is one of those sort of spots for him. I was looking at McCarty, and I guess I kind of assume that like a blank statement, guys coming off the Korn Ferry Tour are just bombers. It's not really that. He's well below tour average in ball speed, but he's hitting, he's only has a couple measured starts with strokes gain data, but he's hitting like 75% of fairways. So he's much more of an accurate guy, which leads me to think like maybe he can get it done. I know he's grew up in Arizona, so should be very familiar with, this style golf where you've got to keep it in the fairway or else you're screwed. It's a lot kind of like Florida golf in a way that there is a severe penalty for a foul ball, right? And here, those rocks are impossible. You get in there, dude, and I was in there, and you look at your ball, and you're like, I could maybe do this. And you think about hitting it, and then you just hit it, and it goes nowhere, or it goes backwards. It's just impossible. You got to take a drop. It's like here, you hit a foul ball, and you're in the water, and you're reloading. Just not the place for a big miss. So looking at more into his stats, realizing that, he's got 4 wins, I think now in his last like 10 or 11 starts, and he is a highly accurate player, makes me believe that it's not a terrible number at 40-1, but the two that I mentioned that I do have already on the card are Tom Hoagie at 40-1 and Adam Hadwin at 45. Bumping up to this kind of 50 plus range, you start to get Schmid, who had a nice sort of run on Sunday last week, Chan Kim, Adam Svensson, Andrew Putnam, Fowler, who's out there. I think that Butch has a little setup at TPC Summerlin too, which may be something to pay attention to for Fowler. Daniel Berger. I had someone in the comments on this show a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, can we bet Daniel Berger? And I was like, absolutely not until he shows me something. He's kind of done that. And it's not like the number I'm seeing is sort of in the 60s there, a 7th and a 35th. Like those are the breadcrumbs on the trail that I was sort of looking for Daniel Berger. Are you there yet with him, or are you still sort of wait and see?
No, so I'm gonna be on Berger again. I was on him last
Okay.
week, and he was atrocious in round one. I mean, he had a terrible round one. So to finish, what did you say, 35th?
Yeah.
That was on the back of three pretty solid rounds
You just
after
had to grind to make the cut, right?
yeah, he was exactly. He's on the cut line. He hit on one of that drivable par four. He went like 11 feet. He just lipped out the eagle putt. Like he was doing some really good things and shot a really nice round on Friday to make the cut. And then the weekend was, you know, fair, solid. So I mentioned with English, right? Former elite to
Yeah.
borderline elite guy who has had
Injured.
injuries and is now trying to fight back, and he needs to play well, right? Or else he's going to be in a situation where his major medical is run and he doesn't have any more exemptions, and he's kind of at the mercy of what other players are doing as far as picking their schedule. And he's a guy who we've seen win elite tournaments, right? He won that Colonial the first week back from COVID when all the big dogs were there. Like, this is a guy who is, when he's on his best stuff, at minimum a top 25 player. And he's
Mm-hmm.
talking about that he's, 100% healthy for the first time in a long time. So Daniel Berger's going to be on the card. I'm just going to do it. The number is not, it's not amazing, but it's not bad. It's a number that I can squeeze into a card and still make a, nice balanced card, and not have to sacrifice anywhere else. So Berger for me is a for sure bet.
Okay, I like your sort of analysis there on Burger. I haven't been here in the fall yet, but I'm going back to Adam Svensson.
Yeah, I knew
Kind
you
of my
would.
boy here.
I had
He
a
got
feeling.
it. You knew I was going. Like,
I knew you were going Spenny.
fall swing killer. Dude loves it. Loves when
Yeah.
we get to these short little courses where he can get a wedge in his hand. Here's the thing. I ran a little like 50-50 blend model just to see, based on 50% driving accuracy, 50% around the green, just to kind of put it up for one of the articles that I did over the last 30 rounds. Adam Svensson's number one. He's become a really, really good chipper, Luke. Gained strokes around the green now, and I think 7 straight starts. And some of them are quite a few. Like at the 3M, gained 4 strokes around the green. Just kind of bleeds it putting more often than not, but has the spikes that you're looking for. I wish this number was a little bit elevated at 60, but like you see at the Wyndham, he lost 4 strokes putting at the Sanderson Farms, but in the tournament before that, gained 6.8 at the Wyndham. Like, these are the flashes that you're kind of looking for out of a player in the 60 to 100 to 1 range. It's what he did at the RSM Classic a few years ago. Out of nowhere, he gained 9 strokes putting. He wins. Really accurate off the tee. Has also showed some breadcrumbs. First round leader last week at the Desert Course before fading a little bit. Still managed to squeak out a top 25, but highly accurate player. Last 24 rounds, 73% of fairways. Really good around the greens. Can trust him with your wedges, and he is a flusher with his sort of short irons. I think it's a really savvy bet at like 65 to 1 on a guy like Svensson, who this is a prototypical course fit for his style of play. You are just hoping to marry like what he does consistently with one of those good putting weeks, and I think that he can be up there on a leaderboard.
I don't hate it at all. And there's a book here based in Las Vegas. You know which one I'm talking about. It's got a 70.
Yeah.
So if you if you need to talk business later, let me know.
Let's go. All right, going down the list, you've got Thorbjorn Bjornsson, who sort of withdrew and was popular last week. I think it was just like on the cut line and didn't want to come back in the morning. Fishburne, big bump on someone like Pat Fishburne. Have you been betting Patty Fish?
I haven't been betting it. I've been like following this kind of weird phenomenon. He's a guy who seems to have kind of come out of nowhere. I don't really like.
Yeah.
I couldn't identify him. I couldn't like tell you what he's good at, but I have seen his name pretty high up on leaderboards, and you got to pay attention when you keep seeing it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, what has played really well on that West Coast, and you just like what I'm paying attention to more than anything is it's a very, I would say, similar in top to bottom field strength as what we had last week,
Mhm.
and his price like more than doubles. you had to bet him like 25, 28 to 1 last week. Now you're getting 66.
It seems
Always an
like the books
opportunity that
might
you
be.
kind of look for.
It seems like the books might be kind of baiting us on that one. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you idiots bet him at 30 last week. Well, you guys want to bet him at 60 this week?
Come on back. Keep
Right,
taking Pat
exactly.
Fishburne to win
Yeah,
PGA Tour tournaments.
right.
Kuchar's here. Novak, Nick Taylor, obviously has some good stuff going on at the West Coast. One at Pebble, one at TPC Scottsdale last year, sort of in a desert type course, but has been playing pretty poorly. Kazire coming off a recent win. Ryan Fox, Adam Smalley's been playing decent golf. Eckroat, Silverman, Todd, Chuck Hoffman, EVR, Sam Stevens. These are some of the guys in this 80 to 100 to 1 range. You have anyone that you like or you want to talk about, Luke?
Yeah, Nick Taylor.
Okay.
Nick Taylor kind of jumped out for me in this range. I've got Nick Taylor like pegged in my mind as a much classier player than most of this field, right? I mean, this is a guy we saw, like you said, he won the in Scottsdale, which is a tournament that usually draws a pretty solid field. He won the RBC Canadian a few months before that, which was a really good field. He, to me, is just like a guy who is better than, I don't know, 80% of the guys who are priced ahead of him on this board, right? He's not playing terrific golf like you mentioned, but he did have a 25th last week, so at least he's played recently and played half well. Yeah, good desert form. We see the Canadians play well in the desert and play well here. Like that's a couple of reasons for me to bet somebody in this range. That's I think a pretty easy call.
All right, so I hope you're on this guy, and I think based on your comments earlier in the show, you might be. But I took 125 to 1 earlier today on Gary Woodland. Is he on your board?
Yes, sir.
Let's
Absolutely.
go.
Yep.
So
Let's roll.
listen, Gary's been flushing. Last couple of starts, the approach play has been outrageous. Gained 7.5 on approach at the Sanderson Farms. The start before that with strokes gained data, he gained 3 at the Wyndham. The start before that, he gained 8.4 with his irons at the 3M Open. This is what we love to see. We want to root for Gary. We want to bet Gary. He's played really well in sort of desert courses before. If you look back at some of his links in Scottsdale, obviously some stuff on the West Coast when you look at Pebble where he won his U.S. Open. And he did withdraw in 2022 at the Shriners, but obviously we know some of the things that Gary was going through 2 years ago. But if you look back a little bit further, has a top 10, has a top 18 in 2018, 2019 at this course. So some decent course history. I love it. 125 to 1. If I lose this bet and it's over in the first 3 holes on Thursday, I don't care. Give me an inform with his irons, Gary Woodland at 100 plus to 1 in a weak field, and I'll gladly, throw away $20 on it.
Yep, I'm here for it. It's the case for Gary. It's pretty simple, right? I mean, you just mentioned he's absolutely flushing it. Stevie Bamford has his 8-week rolling average. He's third, tee to green in that 8-week rolling average. It's just a matter of, can he putt reasonably? Can he not bleed away multiple strokes per round?
Yeah.
And more likely than not, he's going to be there. And I talked about these guys who were elite or borderline elite players who fell off because of injury. That's what happened to Gary Woodland, right? He's kind of fallen off a little bit before the injury, but he's had some medical stuff, and we're seeing flashes of him returning to some of that, elite play. And I would be sick to my stomach if I missed it. So let's just not miss it at a huge number.
Yep. Other one that I went to in the bomb range, and full card will be out tomorrow, but took Henrik Norlander again. It gave me a nice little sweat last week at 90 to 1. Was essentially through, let's call it 25 holes, the leader of that tournament, and had a nice start all in all together. He just seems to be starting out really hot and fading toward the weekend, but I love the fact that he's just been getting a ton of reps and playing a ton of golf. He has a couple of DP World Tour starts, since the August that he played pretty well at T8, I think at the British Omega. And he's just been playing a lot of golf, very solid, very consistent, highly accurate player. And I love the fact that he's seemingly in a little bit of a groove with his swing right now. And he's like, I'm just going to keep playing until maybe one of these weeks I can put it all together. If he can avoid that one round that he seems to be like stagnant and shoot one over par, he's got the low ones in him right now. And it is a bigger number than last week. So I'm going to go back after I saw some signs and felt like he gave me a nice little sweat the week prior.
I like that one. I may join you there. The only other real bomb I'm looking at, I think, is probably Joel Dahmen.
Okay.
I'm a sucker for Joel Dahmen. I believe in the, ups. I feel like he's got the ability to be an upper echelon next tier guy, right? I think on the PGA Tour, the full swing, like first season, I think he had a quote about like somebody's got to be the 77th best golfer. Not me, right? Like I feel like that the 77th best golfer is the guy who can win a tournament like this every once in a while, and he's got a 7th and a 9th here in the past 5 years. He's made the cut 6 years in a row, so he plays here a lot. He played last week and was, made the cut 40th, whatever. So he's been playing. He likes it here. He's an Arizona guy, so desert golf is not going to be too weird to him. And I think when things are going really well for him, what he's doing is he's hitting his driver out into the fairway. He's hitting it really close and just making enough to be exciting.
Yeah, and it's interesting now that I think about it, what you say, because he was such a prominent figure in those Netflix docs. And in season 1, he was kind of like the wild guy taking his shirt off and talked about, I don't really have expectations, and 77th guy is somebody's got to do it. Season 2, you could kind of see, it ended with a great episode, I thought, where you could see a little bit of a mentality change where he sort of made a commitment to Gino and himself that he's going to take it a little bit more seriously. He's going to maybe tone down the partying a little bit this week, which is definitely something to consider when these guys show up to Vegas in the fall, that maybe he's a little more centered and has some more strong goals that will, help him play better in weeks like this, where normally it could have been a week off to just show up in Vegas and hope to make a cut and be out at 5 a.m. at the tables like some of us like to do. But Joel seems to have his mind right, maybe a new family man aspect of it too. Like we both know, you got to change things up when you start having kids, and some of the things you used to be able to do for the betterment of myself, I would like to think you got to make some adjustments.
Well, I don't know. I've never been out at the tables till 5 a.m. I can't relate, Joe. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. I'm the crazy one, right, Luke? You have no idea. Dude, so great. Awesome to have you join me. Anything else you want to add from a long shots before we get out of here? It was great to talk to you, buddy.
I think that was it. I'll probably end up throwing some stupid bets on some of the jabronis that I love to lose money on, like Dylan Wu and some of these other bozos that I don't actually even need to talk about. One thing I've been really liking, I've been betting some live first round leader. You ever mess with that?
Don't really dabble in it. What's the deal?
Dude, I don't know, man. It's just fun to kind of wake up on Thursday and see like who might be catching a heater, who's got out to like a score that if they just birdie the birdie holes going in, become uncatchable. I think I hit 2 in a row.
You hit Svensson?
Well, so I hit one at the Pro Core, or maybe it was Sanderson. I can't. Everything blends together for me now. But like, I hit one at like 9-1.
Was Hostler, right? Or somebody got him. You're right.
Yeah, I can't even remember who I've been like. I just picked these guys up, but I hit one at like 6-1 and like 9-1, which is nothing crazy. I'm not like going and I'm not going to victory lap it on Twitter or anything. But like, it's six. Golf betting is funny because if you hit 6-1 in any other sport on any other bet, it's amazing. But if you hit 6-1 in golf, it's like, man, no one cares. But like when you can catch it at a pretty safe, number. And so I've been doing that. And then last week I grabbed Norlander at 9-1. And then when McCarty was making his move, I got him at plus 250 and they were tied for it. And then I cashed them both out when it looked like Svensson might be able to catch him. Yeah. And I made a profit on both of those bets. And I just like, I was like, this is this is great. This is fun. I love this. So I'm gonna be looking at the first round leader live market tomorrow. See if I can find some, or Thursday. See if I can find something that looks like somebody might be catching a true heater.
Listen, you find a little value, you know where to send the text. You're so
Yep.
right about that on a 6-1, how we look at that so differently in golf. So I had a flight back from Indianapolis this Sunday. And it was like it was like a 150 flight. So it was during the 1 o'clock game. So I'm like, let me take a little 3-team parlay, 6-1, little 3-teamer. And I'm sweating this thing on a Southwest Airlines flight. Like, people behind me must have thought I was crazy. I'm fist pumping. I'm like, Indianapolis, I need to score. I need all this different stuff to happen. I need the Bucks looked good, and then they didn't look good, and then they finally cemented the deal. And it was just super fun to sweat that 6-1 little 3-team bet. And I for some reason, you don't get fired up about it in golf. So we need to appreciate all the wins, brother.
Absolutely. I'm never gonna be mad at myself for 6xing my bet. Like, get out of
Great to talk to you, dude. You be easy. Tell the family that I said thank you for sparing you for an hour of probably getting close to bedtime out there. All the best to you. You're one of my favorite people on here. So thanks for coming on the show. We'll talk soon.
Joe, you're the man. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Luke. Later, man.
Later.
All right, gang. Thank you so much for checking out the show this week. Got to mention before I get out of here, go over to True Linkswear. I've showed this a couple of times, like the golf product and shoe that they're putting out there. He mentioned Joel Damon's got these on. There are a bunch of players out there on tour rocking True Linkswear. They just released their Dead Golfer collection. If you want anything from there, if you want a hoodie, if you want a t-shirt, if you want a hat, if you want golf tees, if you want the shoes, Idoni20 is my sort of friends and family code. We'll get you 20% off. They offer free shipping on everything. Great people over there. If you're checking out this show on YouTube, on Twitter, on the Golf Newsnet, thank you so much. I genuinely appreciate each and every one of you for supporting the show during the fall swing. Drop me a comment on the YouTube channel. You guys are the absolute best. I wish you great luck at the Shriners Open. We are bound to hit a winner this fall swing, and I think it's going to be this week out in Las Vegas. Good luck. I'll catch you guys later. I'm out of here. Peace, gang.